I'm a Barbie girl, watch me as I whirl. Life in IK, ancients all day. I just transmog my gear, no help, look at my hair. Don't need no Raymond Storms, this isn't even my true form. Come on Barbie, join my party. Yeah. Come on Barbie, join my party. Come on Barbie, join my party. Yeah. Come on Barbie, join my party. All right. Hope you guys like that little Barbie girl for you.
Pretty awesome.
If only you could have seen the reaction when I first listened to it.
It looks kind of like this.
It's kind of like what I imagine most of the chat is going through and doing right now.
I don't know. I'm seeing 10 out of 10. Rockin', play it again. I can't believe it. Best intro ever.
Yeah. now you have to go and make a small video with a barbarian and then just put it on YouTube with that song.
Do
That's
that.
right. I want the Barbie girl Robert Frost crossover. Figure that one out.
We'll have to get started on that one.
We'll have to find an area in the game where there's like two paths that diverge and the Barb is just standing there like, where do I go?
What's Caesar?
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are here with episode 46, Storytime with Wyatt Cheng. And of course that means we do have a special guest with us. If you're watching live here, you can see in the middle, there's a box, an extra box.
Yay!
Woo-hoo. So, Wyatt, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We absolutely appreciate that you're here and giving us some of your time tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love playing the game, and it's great to have a chance to sit down and just hang out for a while.
Excellent. Yeah, we will be here for a while, as you know from listening to the show. We tend to go on quite a bit, but hopefully that's cool with you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's great to hang out with members of the community. I love this game the same as you guys.
Excellent.
Okay, that's a good thing to hear. You know, one of the senior designers going through and saying that.
Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that. Who would have thought?
So let's do our usual thing, huh? Week in gaming. I mean, I don't know. I think something kind of significant happened in Diablo last week.
Yeah, I think there was that thing on Friday. I forget what it was called.
I forget.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly from the sleep deprivation, I think some of our memories are lost a bit.
Ever so slightly. So unless you were just completely devoid of any Diablo information whatsoever, most should know that Season 3 started on Friday.
Yeah.
Little tiny thing.
Kicked off Friday night, 9 p.m. EST, 6 p.m. PST over on the Pacific Coast. And Nineball, what did you do to start out your night?
Well, for that, I was actually playing with you. Imagine that.
Whoa.
Though we started a little bit late. We did. I'm sure some in the channel here might have actually been there. I see a couple familiar faces, or I should say, screen names. That we did our usual live stream. We streamed until we hit 70. And of course, if it wasn't bad enough, we started an hour late because we had a couple guests that joined us. We had Minerva and Dainty were on the stream there with us.
That's right, and we had some different time zones too, which is cool, mixing it up.
Yeah.
Did you roll a Demon Hunter?
Yes, I did. Going back to the Demon Hunter, my one true love. It felt so nice. I enjoyed my time with the Witch Doctor, but this is where it's at. This is where I'm at home with.
And did Leviathan do a Crusader?
I didn't. I strayed from the path of the righteous and wrathful and decided to bring fury back into my life because it had been quite some time.
There you go.
So yeah, I went and hit up the Barb. Actually, well, I should say this, because I love this game so much and because I had a little bit of time to kill once the season started up, I actually did open up with a Crusader and got that up to level 26 before we started leveling with the party, and then I switched over to the Barb.
He made good use of that extra hour that he had of the season before the stream started. I was out eating dinner.
Right. Yeah, don't waste a minute, right?
Can't, man. Every second counts.
It's all about that efficiency.
Oh yeah.
I was at home. I was cooking dinner at 5:40, 20 minutes before it started. Made sure it was a meal I could eat at my computer so that I could still play.
So I'm guessing you had a little buffalo wings and some things that were definitely getting your
That's right. That's right.
perfect gaming food.
And pizza. No, I think it was like what did I have that night? I thought it was like raviolis or something.
Nice, very nice. So yeah, what did you roll?
I rolled a wizard. I played with Celestalon. I don't know if you guys know him. He's over on the World of Warcraft team. He works on the systems team as well. He and I kind of do similar work on the two games, and so we both rolled wizard and played around together with two other friends. So there's 4 of us as well. We played with a barb and two barbs. That's right.
Nice.
So it's 2 barbs and 2 wizards.
Double the barbs, double the fun.
That's right.
Yeah.
Excellent. And so, did you guys stay up all night until you got to 70, or?
I did. So we all stayed until we got to 70, and then 2 people dropped out, and Celestalon and I kept on playing until 6 a.m. We went for 12 hours straight. That was pretty fun.
Nice.
But yeah, it was. I had a really good time. So we had a deal. Celestalon and I really wanted to play the Del Sears Magnum Opus set, and he was theory crafting the Tal Rasha set beforehand. So we made an agreement that everything Magnum Opus would go to me, and everything Tal Rasha would go to him, and that worked out well. So I think I got actually the good side of that deal. I got fed a lot more than he did, but we knew beforehand it was going to be luck. So.
Speaking of feeding,
the appropriate term.
Oh my goodness!
Even though it didn't quite pan out so much once we hit 70, but on our journey to 70, we were throwing around the hashtag #Feed9ball, because even though I was the only Dex user in the group, everything that was dropping from all the other characters was dexterity.
That was unbelievable.
Yep.
I'm like,
someone would go through. I think someone even had like a really nice quiver drop while we were leveling on a wizard.
So yeah, we pretty much got carried by 9-ball. It was nice.
Smart,
good.
yeah. Smart loot was rolling in my favor that night.
What did you guys do to level?
We did mostly Act 1 bounties.
Yeah, there was the one video that I think that you guys had actually featured on the website about like the most efficient way to go and level. Even though Leviathan's all about efficiency, we also like to have fun. So we just did full bounty runs through Act 1 just to give it a little bit of variety and to actually get some rift keys and things of that nature for once we hit 70. But we always went through and ran Halls of Agony 3 just because the experience is so good there that even if there wasn't a bounty, we would just clear it for the XP.
Yeah, totally.
And it ended up I think, what was it, on Season 2, we started right as the season went live and we finished at 5:30. This time, we waited an hour, but we still finished at 5:30, so it made a difference, always making sure that we went through and ran that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Did you guys do the Leoric's crown at 18 or 19?
We didn't. A couple of people were mentioning it, but we never ended up popping over there for that.
Yeah.
Did you take advantage?
I did. Yeah, we went and we did that, and of course, partway through we're wondering, man, because your leveling slows down, right? You go and you do your story, and then you go kill the Skeleton King, and you get your crown. You're like, man, was that worth it? That was like a 20-minute detour, but I think by the time you get to be, in the in the 50s and 60s, you start to go, yeah, that was probably worth it.
Yeah. What time did you hit 70?
I think I hit 70. It was 5 hours and 20 minutes. I know that. So I guess that would be, what, 11:20 Pacific?
Yep.
Yeah, so that was like a full, what would that be? Almost 2.5 hours earlier than we did.
Yeah.
So I guess apparently, Leoric's crown does make a difference.
The Leoric's crown, and then the other tip, which I'd never done this before. I think in the first season, Don Vu and I, we played from The Office, and we just went straight. I think that one actually took us over 6.5 hours. So it's kind of similar, where previous seasons took longer. But there was a new tip this season, which was that I didn't know about, but I guess it's been there the whole time. to craft level 60 weapons, when you hit level 42. And I don't know why I never thought of that before, but I saw that tip and it was like, wow, that's really, really effective.
Yeah, for the level reduction, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we did that last season, but I completely forgot this time around.
Yeah, and even because, obviously mats are a little harder to come by, but I think I had like 2 or 3 chances at it, and I couldn't get anything with the level reduction. So it actually works out kind of funny, because some people in your party will instantly have this huge power increase, and then you're kind of back to like, okay, I'll just watch, guys.
Yeah, totally.
Feed 9 ball.
Hashtag feed 9 ball.
Well, we had something similar where it was like there was 4 of us playing, right? And then everyone goes to the blacksmith, and we're all actually, sitting around and we're in Skype together, and we all start crafting, and then someone was like, yes, I got a -6, and then someone else was like, I got a -12. And then as we level from 42 to 60, different people's, reduced weapon comes online, and you're like, yes, my turn to contribute once again.
So you just get those little tiny jumps in clear speed.
Oh, yeah. All right, so then from there, how did the rest of your guys' time in the past week, or I guess not even a full week yet, the past couple of days in this season so far go? Assembled sets?
Last night, I just finished my Unhallowed and my Natalia's. So I'm really psyched about that. I'm just a few levels away from Paragon level 200. Although I was reading on Reddit, and there's some people, I think like Monday, that were almost 500, and some crazy dedication to the game there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy with what my luck has been so far. It had a couple days. The first couple days was just here's 2 pieces of Marauders, and then now here's 2 pieces of Natalia's, and then here's 2 pieces of Marauders. Here's 4 pieces of Shadow, and here's another piece of Marauders and another piece of Natalia's. It's like, can you just give me one? Just RNG, please. Just give me one. Just complete one set. I think I had like I had 5. I had no Ring of Royal Grandeur, and I had like the 5-piece set bonus for almost all of the sets before I actually completed my first 6-piece, which was Unhallowed's.
I mean, that really seems to be the story of kind of the first few days, is everyone that I talked to, because I was streaming, my whole time with the season so far, and so people would pop in and just be like, oh, what are you working on? I'm like, I still don't have my full set. Like, I have 3 IK, and I have 2 Raycore, and, just always hoping for another piece so I could just fill something out. And everyone was commiserating, too. They're like, yeah, I got like 2 Unhallowed Essence and, 2 Delcirs, etc. So it's interesting, because now we're really observing the fact that there are so many extra items in the pool to get in drops that, yeah, it's going to, take a little bit longer to possibly assemble those sets, unless you're just crazy lucky and you get that full, the game just wants to give you that full 6-piece right away.
Yeah, I imagine having someone to actually do the loot sharing with the switching the sets around would also help, because I actually, I got Lieutenant Lunatic. I got him his 5-piece set bonus for Unhallowed when I only had 3 pieces, because I kept having doubles drop of the pieces I already had, which he didn't have.
Oh.
So it was just like one of those ones. It's just like, here, take it.
Speaking of, what was it, Lunatic, did you guys get the Lunatic ring?
Oh man, the Nagel ring.
I have not found one yet, but I have seen that thing in action.
Oh my goodness. We got I got a Nagel ring when I was level 18 or something like that. That thing is nuts when you're leveling. It was absolutely insane. I got to level 70 and I was still wearing my Nagel ring, because it scales with your weapon damage.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Did you get one, Leviathan?
Yes. I picked one up, I want to say around like level 30-ish or so. And same story, you keep it on just because it's going to just keep doing damage for you. And there were a couple of people coming in being like, guys, I think there's this bugged item. Like, I don't know if it's supposed to work like this. Don't tell anyone.
So, and then here you are telling one of the designers about it. Thanks, Steve.
Sorry, guys. Nagel ring nerf.
Well, I mean, it was so funny, because sometimes, like, because it's a new effect, right? Like, I'd forget that I'm wearing a Nagel ring, and I'd cast, like, my Frozen Orb, and then everything would die, and I'd be like, whoa, why'd my Frozen Orb do so much damage? And Celestalon would be like, that was your Banelings. They blew things up for you.
Exactly. And you were saying in your situation with Celestalon, you guys were doing a bit of swapping because he wanted the Taos and you wanted the Delseers. So how did that work out, assembling the sets?
Yes, so that worked out really well for me. After our first 12 hours, I had 4-piece Delseers, but the really big deal is that Celestalon had a Triumvirate drop for him, and so he gave that one to me because you know, Triumvirate goes with Delseers. So 4-piece plus Triumvirate was huge. I mean, that immediately put us in, you know, Torment 4. And then kind of carried, you know, him a little bit, and you know, he's all decked out with his Tal Rasha now, so that was fun. I've got my Wizards doing really well. I've completed sets, and I started my Barbarian as well.
Oh,
so,
nice.
My Barb
Nice.
now. And then I saw that there was a lot of people playing around with Ingeom and the Monk, so I'm so tempted to roll a Monk as well pretty soon. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, Monk is going to be my off class for this season. Once I'm at a happy place with my Demon Hunter, I'm going to level one up.
Yeah. Especially if you get an Ingeom, right? Like, even if it's on a class, you can just enchant off the primary stat.
Right.
Yeah.
And just and roll with it still. I think this really will be the season of just alts, like people, you know, working with 2, maybe even 3 classes, just because there's so many, you know, cool and interesting builds being figured out still. And then just, you know, people having curiosity on what the sets do now that they've been reworked. And of course, like, everyone, once they figure out some crazy build, you know, it goes up on YouTube or Reddit and it gets super popular, and everyone's like, I want to flock to that, and then they go and try it out, and then someone else is like, well, what about this Demon Hunter thing that's happening now? And so I think it's just going to be a super exciting time in terms of everyone wanting to play everything all at once. There were people even on Friday, I remember we were in clan chat, kind of, you know, the rowdy people at the gate, like, kind of like, come on, let us in season 3. Still trying to figure out, like, with 2 minutes left, like, what class am I going to play? It's like, guys, if you don't know by now.
You just grab a dice and you roll. That's how you decide it.
That's what Droff did, and that's how he ended up with his Demon Hunter.
Nice. So Luck wanted you to play the best class in A.
There it is.
Yep.
Oh man. So yeah, so we're just talking about seasons and seasonal play and stuff. So what in terms of, you know, going for your early goals in season 3, what are you targeting? Maybe conquest, or just, you know, getting into a certain greater rift, or?
Well, you go first, Nimble.
Okay, thank you. I know, well, obviously, we have a couple conquests that we've planned out and doing. Leviathan and I, as well as a couple other people in the clan, have been kind of theory crafting and trying to gear ourselves up really quickly to try and take on some of the conquests. But one in particular that eluded us during season 1 and has been a thorn in our side ever since is Speed Racer. So that is, I am 1 Dinetta's away, and then we will start going and trying to tackle that one pretty quickly.
I am with you there. I wanted to do that Speed Racer as well. I tried to do Speed Racer in season 1 as well. We wound up not being able to crack 1 hour 4 minutes, but last night I just got my Aether Walker on my Wizard, and that's kind of like, so then I kind of messaged, you know, a bunch of friends, and they're like, okay, I got my Aether Walker, so I'm ready to try when you guys are ready. Because, you know, you kind of, like, people need to have either the Dinettas or the Aether Walker, so it's kind of like putting some feelers out there. It's like, okay, if we can get 4 people who all have, you know, what they need, let's do this.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then everything else comes down to RNG on your maps.
Yeah, I saw there's already been for Speed Racer, for the hardcore side, a group of 3 actually got it done already. I believe it was 2 Demon Hunters and I want to say a Crusader.
Oh wow.
So
but then that was one thing that we did learn during season 1, is that as a Crusader you could keep up really well.
Yeah, you had speed charge.
Yeah, you had better control of your character.
That's true too. All right, because there were some maps, for instance, like going through, I think in particular, was it the bridge of which bridge is that? Bridge of Corsic?
Yeah.
And there be
Act 3.
Yeah.
And there were times where, you know, 9ball's doing his vaulting and getting kind of stuck on corners, and I'm just like pathing right here nicely with my speed charge, like, see you later, man. I'll see you at Siegebreaker.
That's right.
That was one thing learned painfully, is that when you're trying to vault 20 times, you get caught on every single little tiny thing. Oh, there's a plank. There's a plank on the ground. Well, you just wasted 3 vaults because you didn't realize it.
But it's cool. That's why I like this conquest so much, because it kind of opens up another set of skills in terms of, you have to know your maps. You've got to know your spawn points in terms of the checkpoints and where quests come up and who you need to hit right away. But also just the skill of, I won't even call it like APM, but just being able to say, okay, I have to get from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. I need to make sure that the skill that I'm using, I levy it properly so that I don't get stuck, or that I don't, fall out of steed charge in an inopportune moment, etc. So.
Yeah, and the team coordination too, right? You gotta work with your teammates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the voice chat.
So, yeah, we'd have the voice chat. We'd go through. We'd have like the maps of the spawn points, and for was it like the Khosradin in the fields. We'd have the vaults in the Desolate Sands, as well as the Ancient Ruins in Dolgur, just so that way you could see all the spawn points, and we'd go over it beforehand. It's like, okay, now you're going to take this corner, you'll take that corner. We'll all go through, we'll be calling out, who's going to port back to town, or who's going to stay in town to talk with people in order to get the quests going through. Should I take this boss? Should I not? All the other types of things. But yeah, I think... What was our best time? We missed it by like a minute.
Yeah,
wow.
So I got like a 61 or a 62. It was heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what a heartbreak! Yeah, that sounds rough.
Yeah,
I've had my eye on the level 6 gems to 40 conquest.
Mm-hmm.
So I got 3 of them to 40 last night. So I've got 3 left.
Ooh.
So, I mean, when you get that first one to 40, then okay, character's capable, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a matter of like figuring out how to efficiently get all the keys and the, the most efficient leveling of the gems so you can get the other ones to 40 as well. So I'm going to probably try to keep working on that one tonight.
Nice. Yeah, I can speak personally on that one because I finished it last night, actually, or I guess I should say this morning at 5 a.m.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. I was, so I, like you just said, once you get that first one to 40, you kind of figure out, okay, I can get here, I can do this. So yeah, it was a thing of trying to play around and not waste opportunities. Because let's say you have like a level 25 gem, and then you have like a level 1 gem. If you're doing like a greater of 35, for certain you're going to get those 100% on the 1 because you're way above the chance for it. But on that 25, you at least know that first roll will be a 100%. So you're almost kind of like playing your odds out to make sure that you're not wasting any of your rolls on really, really guaranteed upgrades versus, I'm at that 80%, 70%. Because when it got down to it, like I remember I was talking to Mikey, it was 2:30 a.m. and I had 6 more, not 6 more, I had like 2 more gems that were around like level 30-ish. And I was like, dude, I'm going to finish this conquest. I'm so excited. I'm almost done. And then 3 hours later, like I just had so much bad RNG with Urshi, it dragged itself out. So having a plan for that is definitely essential if you want to at least do it as efficiently as possible.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's a heartbreaker when you have like last night I had 238 gems. And we cleared a 42 rift, so I was like, okay, 238 gems. I have a chance, if things go well, that one of them will be 40 after this. And I wound up getting 3 fails in a row. So I was like, no, I'm still 238.
And it makes you feel like, oh, I did that whole rift and for what, Obviously, you still get your legendaries and things of it, but you got your eye on the prize. You got to get that conquest.
The important
try
things.
Again.
I still, there's one of my most vivid memories from last season was just I was leveling up a pain enhancer, and I had 2 90% failures on the same roll, and it was just like, how does this happen?
Who did you wrong?
So here's a question. After you've got your first 3, like obviously your first 3 gems are going to be gems for the character that you're pushing the gryphs on, right?
Yep.
But how did you guys pick your next 3 gems? Was it like options for the character, or did you do your gem of ease, or did you do your boon of the hoarder, or like what did you level next?
That's a great question. The ones that I decided on were either going to be utility, so yeah, like a Gem of Ease, because I did know I wanted to level up some other characters relatively soon after getting the barb on her feet. And then also options, because the thing is, like, because things are so unsettled, the meta is still like, I don't know what gem is going to be perfect for this build, etc. I kind of wanted to have options just within what I was trying to run. So I got my dot gems up, so Gem of Efficacious Toxin and Pain Enhancer. So I can kind of do like the whole like speed clear, leave stuff behind you and it dies. But then also you need something like the Bane of the Trapped, because you know it's just always going to be powerful.
Yep.
So pick that up, and then Gem of Ease as well. And then what were my other two? The Taiguk, because that's really good with Whirlwind.
Yeah.
And then I think the other was the Boon of the Hoarder, just because gold.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense.
Why is that's one of those gems? It's like, why not? You know, you're gonna level it anyways.
Exactly.
Have you played around with any of the new gems? There was like the Ice Blink was the cold one. I was really tempted to try Ice Blink, but like you're saying, like the meta hasn't settled yet. We don't know where that's going to end up. And then, but I did end up leveling my Esoteric Alteration, but I was really tempted to do my Mutilation Guard, particularly for my Barbarian. I don't know if that gem is going to make an appearance at the high end or not. And I was like, well, you know, it's nice to have options, and it's functionally different. Like, you know, we're kind of thinking, I have, you know, would you rather have 6 gems that all do more DPS in slightly different ways, or would you rather have a gem that if you wanted some extra survivability, you know, you could swap that one in?
Right. And then you actually remind me that it's a correction, because I did level up my Wildebeest Gizzard, because of course we're playing hardcore on our side, and so, you know, defense is key, like you're saying, and you want to make sure that you have those options, especially early season, because you're not dealing with unities yet, and you're still trying to kind of push yourself into those higher difficulties just to get the gear coming a little bit quicker.
That was actually my first gem to 25, was the Wildebeest, because I wasn't, with the way that my sets were dropping, I wasn't sure what I was going to be running, so I just leveled that one because it was one I could fall back on, and then started leveling up, you know, like my Pain Enhancer and Bane of the Trapped.
That makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And yeah, I'm definitely very curious about Mutilation Guard in particular, just because since the scaling property on it is the actual melee damage reduction, just imagining that at a super high level, providing for insane defense. And the way I always look at it, I've said this to Nineball in previous shows, is if you can get one defensive gem that's just like ultra powerful, like just really strong, in a way, I look at it as leveraging a couple of different slots on other pieces of gear. So let's say now, instead of taking that all res on my shoulders or something, I might take a skill percent increase, you know, like I'll get Call of the Ancients on my shoulders, or a skill on my chest piece. And so that way I can kind of say, all right, I'm losing perhaps a DPS gem by taking this defensive one, but I might make up for it by making some different choices on my gear and what I carry, like that.
Totally.
Yeah. Then, I mean, it really helps propping you up. And it's with all of the new rings that came in this season, you actually have options that are like better than Unity, you know, without having that, you know, that kind of fallback on having the damage reduction. So I've seen a lot of people even on softcore that have been using some high level like Wildebeests or Mutilation Guards and such, just to have that extra level of survivability that is actually worth giving up a gem slot for. Or another one is Taiguk. You know, I've seen a lot of people using that one because it's both offensive and defensive at the same time.
Right, the compromise.
There's like a certain point. I mean, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but early on, I don't really want to enchant my amulet to get a legendary gem. Especially at those low legendary gem levels. But then once you get your legendary gems up into like the 30s and 40s, suddenly, you know, the value starts to creep up on that fourth amulet affix. So then all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, I need to have a socket in my amulet too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never actually really thought about it that way, but because the amulet is such a strong slot in terms of the affixes you can get on there, and of course because you're limited on crafting mats and things so early on, it might actually make a lot more sense to not try and force your way into a socket there. And like you're saying too, like if your gems are still low level, you actually might be doing yourself a bit of a disservice in terms of ramping your stuff up and getting your damage, or, you know, whatever kind of part part of your character that you're trying to prop up, whether it be sustainability or toughness, things like that. So yeah, it's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I have I have 2 amulets that I use on my wizard right now. One is just a well-rolled Leoric, and then the other one is a Hellfire amulet. We did Hellfire amulets Saturday night. I totally lucked out and got a blur.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
I was like, yeah. I was kind of afraid. I was like, okay, like the worst thing I could possibly get is glass cannon, because then you know, you don't have your options. But I was really happy. I was like, okay, this is the one. I'm gonna go ahead and get the socket on this one, and now I kind of like flip back and forth. So yeah, I was pretty stoked about the Hellfire amulets.
Nice. So now, was that something you guys had talked about before the season started? Like, okay, we know that we want good amulets almost right away or so we're going to go ahead and try and key farm early to get that Hellfire?
Oh no, you know how that one turned out? It's kind of funny. I had a whole bunch of friends come over to my place over the weekend. You know, I was tweeted out that I picked up a bunch of food, and I think there was just a desire to do different activities. You know, it's kind of like okay, we just pushed a high greater rift. That was kind of our breaking point. Let's stop. Let's do something else. And it's like, okay, we'll do some bounties and get some keys. And then someone was like, oh, can we let's kind of like do this different activity. And someone said, how about Hellfire amulets? And we're like, yeah, let's do Hellfire amulets. So just more along those lines.
Nice. Yeah, that's actually kind of cool, because I know Nineball and I were talking before the season started, and we're like, you know, we at some point want to get the Hellfire amulets going, but never really thought about the timing of it.
Yeah, that's something that I do want to start going through and farming up once a little bit better geared, is to go through, or heck, we could even do that tonight. Is to go through and start farming up a Hellfire amulet, because I've got a good amulet right now, but I don't have a socket on it. I can't, the way that the stats rolled, I can't really, it's not going to be worth it to roll the crit damage into a socket.
Right. See, I'm in the exact opposite camp. I have a terrible amulet, but it has a socket, so.
I don't know if you guys have ever play public games that much, do you?
Not too often.
Not too often, at least not on hardcore.
What happens is, that's true on hardcore.
Yeah.
It's a little risky.
I'm playing software this season, but you're absolutely right. Hardcore is.
I'll forgive you. I'll forgive you.
Thank you. I had done public games for, you know, bounties and rifts and stuff, but one thing I had never done is public games for key wardens. And you know, there's a tag in the drop down there for key wardens, and one of our artists, Richie, he showed me yesterday. He was like, hey, have you ever done this? I'm like, no. He goes, well, there's like a social convention. This is totally news to me. There's a social convention that you go to different acts in a public key warding game, and you individually hunt out the key warden, and if it drops a key, you say it in chat to everyone else. So it's almost like you're split farming all the key wardens. And that was, I mean, I know that you can do that in a private game, but apparently that's just a socially accepted convention in public as well. So.
Yeah, it is the most efficient way of doing it, which I'm incredibly thankful for that change so long ago, where the keys will, if it drops for one person, it drops for everybody, so that way you're all synced up when you're actually running as a group.
Definitely a nice quality of life change.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of Richie, he was super happy. So Richie's a character artist on the team, and he is super excited. Just talking about the team a little bit, he's super excited this season because he did the modeling and texturing of the Unhallowed Essence set. And so this season he rolled a Demon Hunter. And he finished his set, and he was just so happy. He was like, yes, I got the set that I made.
He literally finished his set.
Yes, exactly.
That's amazing.
His set, yeah. And it's almost like the game knew, because the game also decided to grace him yesterday with an ancient Dead Man's Legacy. So he is on cloud 9.
Dang.
That is very nice.
Yeah.
I'm really digging that set, by the way.
Awesome, good, yeah.
Yep, Natalia's is what I really want to go for, because Strafe is one of my favorite skills in the game. But I don't really have quite the rest of the gear there or the damage output to make it really shine, so I'm going back to the Unhallowed Essence, and it's a lot of fun.
So nowhere in there did you mention Marauders. Are you gonna go back to Marauders at all?
Yeah, I'll complete the set, but it's something that I've just done so much. I really like the play style of the other ones. I mean, if it comes down to it, in order to try and push a conquest or something, I'll do it in the name of the team. But yeah, Marauders is definitely way down there on the bottom.
Sure. You've gotten your good amounts of play time out of that.
Yeah, I'm quite familiar with the play style by now.
One day you will miss it. Mark my words.
But today is not that day.
Exactly.
And before we move too far away from the topic, one of the things that we did want to discuss is just sort of the behind the scenes at Blizzard. In terms you're just talking about Richie, and some of the things that people don't necessarily think about all the time while we're playing the game is the people that make the game, and not just the people that we see. The Travises, the John Yangs, the Wyatts. But kind of, could you talk a bit about the team in general? Like, how big is it, and who's working on what, and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. It is kind of an honor to speak, publicly on behalf of the team every so often, when we are able to do, media stuff. But I mean, there's a lot of people on the team who aren't, in the public eye, and every so often we look at the player ways. Roger was on a player way a while ago. He was a gameplay programmer, and he has been working on, changes for the game, and he loves the game. And he's got his Barbarian. I want to say he finished his 6-piece wastes yesterday.
Nice.
He started late. He wasn't able to play on Friday and most of Saturday, so he's like 2 days behind. But so he finished his 6-piece wastes. And like I mentioned, Richie, and we've got other artists, Neil, who I think also did a player way at one point. Neil and Josh, a different Josh. This is Joshua, one of our tech artists. They're playing hardcore together, and they're having a lot of fun. Yes,
one of us.
Yeah,
one of us. One of us.
One of the things Josh loves to do is tech artist Josh is stack a ton of passive life regen. And a Wildebeest Gizzard, and his benchmark, and he uses a Rogar's Huge Stone.
Oh man!
And he just loves like the super life. He's like, look, if I get disconnected, my guy is not dying unless he is standing in a desecrator. But anything less than that, my guy is not dying.
If you don't mind me sidetracking for a second there, that was me at the beginning of the season. As I was just equipping like the first legendary that I found. By the time that I got into Torment 1, and I looked at my gear, I realized I had 60,000 life per second. Because every single piece of gear I had life per second, and then I had a level 2 Wildebeest Gizzard. I'm just like, that's a lot of life.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So yeah, at Torment 1, I could just stand in everything, and then I had to count as Julia's, so I didn't even have to run out of Arcane Beam. So it's just Desecrate, Poison, Thunder, and Frozen. I'm just like, I'm fine, I'm okay. I'm just gonna shoot my bow. I'm just gonna stand here.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean,
nice.
I love the immunity necks. I remember Celestion was beforehand. He had theory crafted out his perfect set. And he said, okay, this is what I'm going for. And then one of those pieces in his perfect set was the Talrasha amulet. And then so he just started spending his blood shards at Kadala on amulets. But before he got his Talrashas, he got, oh my goodness, what's the poison resist amulet? That's
Mara's Kaleidoscope?
Yes, he got the Maras. And he said, I don't have my Talrasha yet, but let me try this Maras for a while. And he was like, wow, this makes every Rift Guardian that I hate easy.
Yep.
Oh man, veracity. You got nothing on me.
And he's like, you know what? I theory crafted one thing, but I think I'm actually going to redo my perfect set around having a Maras, because he's just super happy with it. And that's kind of the dream too. I mean, I hate to get designery on you, but like that's kind of why we we have you go through Kadala, and it's not like spend 10,000 blood shards, get the exact item you want. The hope is that you get something else and play around with it and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to make this work. So.
All right. No, I mean it's happening, either through drops and also through Kadala too. Like I can already have or recall multiple stories of people saying, "Oh, when I started this season out, I had my heart set on X, and X could be, Wrath of the Waste. It could be, any of the put any set in that position. But let's say the drops are coming one way, Kadala is giving you another thing, and then people are breaking out of what they originally thought. Okay, this is my plan going forward. Trying out that new set or that new legendary, and because there are so many new items added with this particular patch, people are having a great time in terms of like, you know what, similar to Celestalon, I'm actually just going to change what I thought my original plan was, which is really cool to see because, so much of the game previous to this is, okay, we have our cookie cutters and we need to get to our cookie cutters. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I love early season in general, just because you see so much variety. You see people using skills they never thought they'd use.
Oh yeah, this is one of my favorite parts of the season itself, is just because you get to experiment with so many different things. You might have this set drop or particular, legendary drops that buffs one skill before you have a set. So you're kind of at the mercy of RNG, and that's what you're going to play whatever it is that the game gives you until you actually get your set together, and then you're just farming for focusing down your build or your in game. And it's a lot of fun because you're switching skills up and things of that nature so much these first few days.
Totally, it's fun. There's some people who really enjoy like the level up process. There's Matthew Berger, he's one of our designers as well, and he is kind of like taking it really slow. He really enjoys just kind of like playing through all the content, and he's not one to like just level as efficiently as possible to 70 in the shortest amount of time. So, he's taking his time, and he likes to find things and explore and create narratives in his head as he plays. And I think that's super cool too.
Absolutely. And it's one of those different strokes for different folks. I actually was recalling a conversation last night because we have a raid call, and we kind of open up to the community for people to hop in, and it actually is really cool because we'll get some discussions. Someone comes in and they're very set on a certain mode of thinking. They'll say, "Oh, this is the way to play the Demon Hunter." And Nineball knows what I'm talking about.
Not naming names, but yeah.
But it's a great moment because at that point, maybe you don't get a conversion, right? But you throw out different ideas and you say, well, just because you think that's the only way, it doesn't negate all of the drops that you're getting until you get to that point of this is the way you think it should be played.
No, you're doing it wrong.
But it's just, I don't know, it creates some of those interesting moments that I love in the community where you get some of that back and forth. And sometimes, people get a little riled up, a little angry. But you get to that point, at least where you walk away and you say, if I didn't learn anything, at least I saw a different viewpoint, and it made me think differently about, what I bring to this game. And for instance, like when we highlighted, I think it was 2 episodes ago, that contest winner, I never think about just the playing the game, literally, identifying things on the screen and being able to read items and stuff. That's just like, okay, yeah, it's a part of the game. But to know that there are actually people out there, just different struggles that you don't really think about. That's why I really love just doing this podcast and getting things like that contributed, but also creating moments like that and the game existing in order for those things to happen.
Oh,
you want to transition?
Yeah, we can go through and move on. I guess one of the other things that I wanted to go through and say that's nice about this season as opposed to the other ones when going through and planning out like the goals for the season and such is just we kind of have an idea of how long the season's going to be. We actually, we actually, thankfully, you were the one that posted it, that we have kind of a target of 4 months, kind of give or take, or it's going to be at least 4 months in length. Which is it's that feeling alone is just so much nicer to where, even though I played like all day Saturday, on Sunday I went out and did things with some friends because it's like, well, it's not gonna be a 2-month season.
Right.
I don't have to spend every waking moment going through and playing. So it's just nice being able to know I have time to complete certain things.
Yes. Yeah, no, totally. I know Flux likes to joke that since we live in California, we don't know how long a season's supposed to be. And I kind of want to say, yep, you got me there. We basically, we have 2 seasons in California. One's 10 months and the other one's 2. So it's kind of like,
Are your seasons like Florida where it's summer and not summer? It's not winter, it's not autumn, it's not spring, it's just summer.
Summer where it's like 72 to 80, and then not summer where it's 68 to 72. So
yep.
That's pretty much how it is here in Southern California. But the season length is one thing I wouldn't mind talking about a little bit is how much we wanted to communicate better the length of the season, but we also struggled with how to do that. And I'll tell you why. And this is kind of, it's probably obvious in hindsight to the community, but as soon as we tell people, hey, the season's going to end in 6 weeks, let's say, then all of a sudden my desire to play, it's almost like the the wind is knocked out of my sails sometimes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with kind of that emotion that I'm describing.
No, I think I get what you mean in terms of, well, okay, now the end is known or it's in sight, and so to some degree you say, okay, well, if I'm, especially like let's put a hardcore spin on it. If I just died and I know, okay, the season ends in 2 weeks, it's almost like, do I even decide to re-roll? Do I just go back to non-season?
That sounds awfully familiar, almost like it happened.
Well, we were thinking like
your audio.
Your audio just something happened to your mic there.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes, you went Peanuts teacher on us.
I was actually talking to some of the Heroes of the Storm guys, and we're kind of at a get together, and I was asking them during season 2. I was like, "Hey, are you guys going to play in season 2?" And their first question was, "How long is it going to be?" And I was like, well, it's, and of course, I kind of knew it's going to be probably about 6 more weeks, and because this is, we're about 2 weeks in. I mean, we don't know for sure. Things always change, and they're like, oh, well, how come you don't just, say that? And we're like, well, we'd like to, but if I tell you right now that there's 6 weeks left, they're like, oh, well, if there's only 6 weeks left, I don't want to play.
Yeah.
So what they kind of described is that, have you tried telling people before the season even starts? And I said, well, the problem is we don't know how long the season's going to be before it starts. And they said, well, if you can at least give me a minimum. And so it was really the Heroes of the Storm guys that were kind of like really trying to help us figure out how to communicate this better. And they said, give us a minimum and say it before it even starts. And that's probably going to meet a lot of the need.
So I'll have send a thank you card over to Dustin Browder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was who? Yeah, I was talking to a bunch of the guys over there, John and Kent and Justin and stuff. So,
nice. But no, it's super helpful. I mean, I can think a couple of tweets and things going through like the Westmarch Workshop community or Westmarch Workshop Twitter account, and when we posted the news item that you guys threw out there, that your post went up, a lot of people were just like, okay, nice, now I can say, I'm going to plan, just like Nineball was saying, I can plan out, I'm going to run this character halfway through the season, I'm going to switch over to this character. And it really is just that organizational piece of, okay, at least I know I can commit if I'm going to go on a month-long vacation or something like that, whoever's that lucky, by the way, then I know I can still commit to this season and play 3/4 of it at the minimum.
Right. Totally. And also, like, I mean, I want to say that we put a minimum there, and that is a minimum. I mean, it could be longer. I guess I just want to make it clear that we're not promising that it's going to be exactly for, right?
Yep.
Of course.
I'm sure because the seasons, like you mentioned in the last Tavern Talk, they're kind of tied to the development cycle. So if something takes longer in order to push out, it obviously could go longer.
Right. And I know that a lot of your viewers are in software development and or in project development, and they know like unexpected things happen. And even though you can shoot for a date, sometimes it just things slip.
Absolutely. That actually reminds me of a story we had. I just started a job a couple of months ago, and we had a meeting last week. And one of the questions, it was a town hall where you could ask anonymous questions. And so someone submitted a question that said, hey, the IT department was working on this program that was supposed to make life really easy for the accounting department. And they said they promised to roll out in 2014. It's 2015. Where's our program?
Yep.
And the IT guy had to basically stand up and say, like, where priorities had to shift when, we made this acquisition, et cetera. And it kind of just reminds me of that. There are so many unforeseen circumstances that can pop up.
The new target date is 2017.
Yeah.
Efficiency coming soon.
It's funny. Sometimes the unforeseen circumstances are things that maybe people wouldn't expect. Sometimes there could be a localization issue in a particular region, or there could be we could be relying on a particular, BattleNet Friends feature, and it's not even like a feature from the player's point of view, but it has to do with, like we sometimes change, underlying protocols or something, and it's relying on a schedule that's outside the immediate game development's control, and so we push by a week or two to accommodate coordination with other teams, and of course, we're not going to give full detail about everything about all these obscure reasons. All we can say is, hey, we're trying to get it out. We'd like to get it out, the patch or whatever it is. But there are unforeseen obstacles sometimes.
Yeah, that always reminds me of when I was really into WoW. I just remember there was like a set of patches during Cataclysm that was just the weirdest things ever. It would be a patch and it would fix something on a boss in Firelands, and then it would also have a known bug. This patch will also cause issues with the Karazhan chess event. And it was just what? How, it's just like one of those, it's like they fixed, it was I think it was one of the ones, the giant stone boss where you had to attack the legs, and they fixed a bug that made it so that way he wasn't turning properly when you would focus down the legs to keep him from going and hitting the outside. And that same patch made it so that way Medivh cheated more often during the chess event all the way back in Karazhan. It was just, how is that connected or correlated in any way, shape, or form? Just like the random things when you get in there and start messing around with the code.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of
You're going peanuts on us again.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, there we go.
Is that better?
Yep.
Sorry about that. I think okay. We had an issue. This didn't hold anything up, but it was kind of obscure, where in one of the languages, there's a monster named Cankerrot. Is that right? But canker translated to cancer. And then culturally, and for a variety of reasons, the monster wound up basically with a cancer. It was kind of a distasteful name. In the way, I don't remember what the exact, this is how it sounds to us if we translate it back to English, but it was an offensive name, and we're like, okay, well, it looks like we have to change that name and retranslate it, and when we translate it, that generates a new client build. Basically, we can hotfix things on the server, but we can't, or we don't hotfix things on the client, and basically the QA process is longer. And so, just all this random stuff comes up day to day that we have to solve. It's kind of crazy.
Definitely.
And chat, the current conversation going on in chat, for any of those that might not be paying attention to chat or watching us here live, your BlizzCon tickets go on sale in 3 minutes. So just letting you know, you have your warning.
How do you guys feel about the at least 4-month season length?
I like it personally. I think 4 months is a good season length. I know there are a lot of people that want to see it as 3. I think for me, I can dedicate some time in the beginning, to go through and hit at it hardcore, but then my schedule will kind of fill up from there, and I can't make as much time during the weekdays for the game. So 4 months, I think, is going to be a nice, like, kind of in between season 1 and season 2, whereas season 1 I was able to accomplish a lot of my goals. Season 2 I accomplished barely any, with it only being 2 months. So I think that would be at least a good length for the amount that I play.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's kind of, it comes down to also like how much time you have to dedicate to the game, but also B, what your goals are in terms of if you're chasing leaderboards, if you're just trying to assemble, a set and mess around in T6 or something like that. And so the way I look at it right now is I'm a little worried because the gear acquisition is so quick once you get up to T6 and things like that. So I'm seeing a lot of people complete their sets already, and we're in like day 5-ish of the season. And I'm very curious if, what I'm hoping is that people will then use that opportunity to say, okay, I kind of figured out the DH. I got, the 3 different sets, and I played around with them all. And I did that in the first 2 weeks. Now let me try out a different character. And then maybe they find one that just sticks, and that's the one they want to climb leaderboards with, but they never intended to do any leaderboard stuff in the beginning. It's my hope of hopes. But right now I'm wondering if it may end up being a little bit too long, just because it seems like there's just a lot of candy being thrown out there. And if people aren't out to perfect their gear, to get ancient in every slot, and to, go top 10 leaderboard or something like that, if it'll just start to get to that point where we're like, okay, we're ready for the next thing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess is also kind of something Nineball was saying is if you go, really hardcore early on in the season, but like some people can't do that. And I was, obviously I was doing some gear trading for completing my Magnum Opus set, but neither of us were collecting Firebirds. So just as a little like personal reference, myself, I was jotting down how long it took me to get my 2-piece, 4-piece, and 6-piece Firebird set in terms of number of hours. And I think right around like the low 30 hour mark, like 31, 32 hours, I got my 6-piece of Firebirds. And I said, okay, now let's say that I'm a player who only plays for 3 hours a week, on Fridays with my gaming group or something. Okay, well that means that it took me 10 weeks to complete my Firebird set if I was playing with my gaming group. And so for them, I mean, they're just completing one set, 10 weeks into, a 4-month or longer season. Right. So I mean, it's tough, right? Because there's a lot of different audiences and play patterns. Hopefully, the people who hit things up really hard at the beginning of the season, like yourself, and want to also get ancient, right?
Yes.
Things is actually what you're trying to do.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see trying to, especially for certain when your build requires like a certain weapon or a very specific setup in terms of like I want an ancient like set of shoulders, but I also need to be able to, it has to roll a certain way, so I have my vit, my strength, my all res, and then I can enchant for my skill percent or something like that. It definitely will get to the point where you're at that grind, and it's going to take time, so you're happy to have the time for sure. So I think that's probably one of the things I struggle with the most, is just looking outside of my own gameplay, because I know I will just grind the crap out of it, and whatever time is there, I'll spend it in the game. But yeah, there are going to be those people too that don't have the time, or don't just honestly don't want to burn themselves out like that playing these long binges. So yeah, I think when you can hit that sweet spot of meeting the needs of both like the super hardcore and for better or worse the term casual players, then that's going to be good.
Yeah, it's hard to please everybody.
Ain't that the truth?
Yep. Yep.
And so one topic that I do want to broach, and it's a bit of a controversial one, but we would, speaking of please everyone, we would be a bit remiss not to mention greater rifts.
And, yeah, sure.
And what comes from that, of course.
Yes, and so of course, like we started out the conversation talking about going in for upgrades on our gems and targeting that conquest. So you already have a conquest built up around it, so that's already putting a bit of spotlight on the Greater Rift system, how it works, etc. But then also, of course, we also talk about keystones, and when we talk about keystones, we talk about the realm of trials, a hotbed topic. And you watch the show, so you see we get feedback every week with a brand new idea. Hey, I just came up with this thing. This is how we fix it, and we do this. And like not none of them, but a lot of them have not been repeats. So everyone's got these crazy ideas, and we're just kind of curious, where things are at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. The trials are they're not good. We don't like them. I don't like them. I would hesitate to say I hate trials. I would say that they.
Can we say it for you?
So I think that I think it's part of the natural iteration process. It solved a problem that we had before. And I don't want to defend trials too much. I mean, I don't want to defend trials. I'm not going to defend them. I think that it is the latest in a sequence of events, and trials will be getting removed from the game. I can't tell you when. I can tell you that we already don't have trials in our internal builds. We've been playing around with it and testing it, and we are committed to removing them. But there were some problems that came up. I don't want to go into all the details that we have because it'll sound like I'm defending the trial system. I just hope that people can respect that we are working on it. Johnny Ebert, he is hard at work. He's working with Roger, the gameplay engineer, to remove trials. Some of the problems that we've had, just scratching the surface, is what does legendary gem upgrading look like if we don't have trials? Like what happens is, so on the very first version where we took trials out, we'd say, okay, well, how do I decide what grift to do? And it's like, okay, well, what if we just let you pick? Like we just like crazy idea. What if there's just this arbitrary, or what if it was based on your personal best? That gets mentioned a lot too. So let's say that I can do, normally I do grift 40 comfortably, let's say, but I happen to get to grift 50 in a 4-player party, and then I go back to solo, and my legendary gem is 48, right? Well, what grift do I want to do by myself next? I mean, I can kind of comfortably do 40. There's no way I'm going to be able to do 48, 49. Right. And yet to upgrade my legendary gem, I'll be incentivized to pick 48, 49, and then it's going to be an absolutely terrible run, right? It takes 30, 40 minutes to clear, but you do it anyway because that's how you get your 60% chance to upgrade your gem rather than a 2% chance.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, well, that's no good. So we kind of iterated a little bit. We made it so that you have to beat the timer in order to upgrade your gem. And anyway, that was kind of like, so it sounds like I'm defending trials. At least, I don't know, maybe some people think that I'm not. That's not my intention. I want to say that I'll keep my answer short. We've gutted trials internally. We're working on it. There were some issues. It had a bunch of downstream effects, and we're still working on it.
Nice.
But we recognize that people are not happy with them. Asking for them to be removed isn't going to make it happen any faster. I wish it could. If it could make it happen faster, I would say everyone should talk about it all the time. But you know what? Everyone talks about it all the time already, and unfortunately, it just doesn't speed up how fast we can get them out.
For sure.
Well, I mean, just going through and looking at the reaction when you started talking about that and said that, trials are going to be removed, chat lit up. It's like...
Drinks on me.
Apparently, Fredgar is buying everybody drinks, so for this one, I think that the message, at least for that alone, is just that, that you've acknowledged that there's an issue with trials and that they're going to be removed, and it's now just finding something to deal with the issues of what that removal does to the game. Like you pointed out, how do you handle gym upgrades and things of that nature. I think that will be at least that is what the community is looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that is out of this conversation, at least from what I think, that is what people are going to be going back and linking and talking about on Reddit within the next 2 hours.
Undoubtedly. Right after people talk about whether they got their BlizzCon ticket or not, right?
Yeah, pretty much, because that is my entire Twitter feed right now.
I wouldn't mind. The title of your Twitch stream right now is Story Time. I wouldn't mind telling a little bit of story time about how Greater Rifts and Trials even wound up in there, if you guys are interested.
Yes, history.
Let's go through. Where's my popcorn? I need to get my pillow.
Let me get comfortable.
Yep.
But it started with a community suggestion. Do you guys remember before Reaper of Souls? Everybody wanted the endless dungeon, right? That's the bottomless dungeon. And there were lots of people would write up, informal posters. There was this really cool infographic someone made about like the bottomless dungeon that you just keep on going down and it gets harder and harder. And we actually tried that. We put it in, and there were in fact a few problems. One of the problems was that the play session is like 8 hours long. Right? So we're like, okay, well, I need a way to save my progress from one level to another. And then there was also kit issues in that if it's literally a bottomless dungeon, does that mean that it's always the same tile set? And you can kind of see where Griff's came from. It was like, okay, it's the bottomless dungeon, but we want to rotate through all of the art. We want to have highly randomized experiences. If it's highly randomized and uses all the monsters and all of the tile sets, then the context of a tower or dungeon doesn't make sense anymore. And someone said, well, what if we called them Greater Rifts, right? And it was just like, because we already had a notion of rifts floating around internally. And we're like, you know what, that works. And then a keying system was developed. And the main purpose of the keying system was to let you save your state between floors on this community-driven idea of a bottomless dungeon. Because I have 15 minutes to play now, I'll play another 15 minutes later tonight. And so we introduced the key.
That reminds me of like the old Mega Man games when after you'd beat a level, you'd get the little code that you'd write down and it would save like your progress in between the levels,
Right, yeah, yeah, totally. And then the Trials was a way to skip ahead through a lot of levels. And then we're like, okay, this is pretty good. We're having fun. This is good. Let's ship it. And I think one thing that's really hard is when you play something internally and we're iterating on things constantly, and we basically play it for, let's say, 2 hours during a play test on a Thursday, and then we make some changes, and then the next Monday or Tuesday we do another play test. What we can't ascertain is how this feels after someone has done this for 400 hours. And I don't know if people remember what Greater Rifts felt like at the very, very beginning, but the Trials, I don't know about you, but they seemed okay when you first do them just once or twice. And it's only when you're really trying to optimize, like, oh, I get my best keys when I'm in a group, and oh, I've reverse engineered, the algorithm for what wave to key, and then there's all these other issues, and then you're like, oh, you know what? It was fun once. It is not fun after 100 times. And so we're like, okay, next iteration, take them out. So, yeah, that's where it came from.
There it is. Yeah, and that brings up an interesting point, because one of the things you keyed in on is that when you're in multiplayer, and that's a large part of the way you play the game, you come up with these party compositions, and you need your 2 DHs and your fair witch doctor and your everything that kind of gets it to the efficient standpoint of, now we can make the best keys, now we can run the highest Greater Rifts. And then you go back to that moment, oh, my friends aren't on, I still want to play, I'm solo, but like you said, I can't upgrade my legendary gems any further because I'm by myself. And I recall one time, I think we got a player feedback here, and we were talking about that distinction between solo and how do you make it kind of catch up to multiplayer. One thing that I thought of and I think was possibly suggested at the same time too, was if the percent chances are just higher for solo players. So let's say you're in a Greater Rift 40, you have a level 50 key, and so you're way above, that key is just, or that gem is way above the level of Greater Rift you're at. But what if it still has that, 90% chance or something like that? Like you just bring the threshold up to a higher point, and then it scales down further. Like once it gets to level 60 or 20 above, then it's that 4% chance or something.
Right. Yeah. No. Maybe. I think in terms of the discrepancy between single player and multiplayer, we have a bunch of options. I think modifying the percent chance of success is definitely one way we could do it. What we're currently looking at is we hinted at this during the last Tavern Talk. The perma CC builds, I think, is what really allows 4-player groups to push significantly farther than the single-player groups. And much like in this patch, we removed perma invulnerability. We are currently looking at removing perma CC as well. And so that actually shrinks the gap a lot between the groups and soloers. I'm not sure how much it shrinks it by. I think that's something that we're going to be looking at during PTR. It's kind of like we're getting rid of the trials, okay, and then we also are looking at 4-player versus 1-player, and we're looking at, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Oh yeah, right. That we have a general philosophy on the team that we don't want to nerf people when possible.
For sure.
Which means that if I can currently reach Greater Rift, 60 in a 4-player group, but then we remove perma CC, well, that group might get thrown all the way back to 52 or something like that. I don't know, right? Like we'd have to actually see what happens when you don't have perma CC, and so we have to make other adjustments, probably by reducing incoming damage in general to levels that you can actually sustain without perma CC, and see if and tune that so that those groups, perhaps with some re-gearing, maybe you have to move a DPS gem to a survivability gem because before you didn't need the survivability, but now that things aren't CC'd, you do.
Yeah.
But make sure that those groups can still reach 60 with roughly equivalent gear. So,
yeah, because I know that's one issue that at least I'm sure that probably other classes have to do it the same way, but with the high level demon hunters, at a certain point they have no survivability whatsoever because it's just not worth it. You can have vitality and all resist on every piece of gear, and you're still going to get one-shotted by mobs. So it's just take everything off, put it all into DPS, and run around and try to, just not get hit and rely on smokescreen. Reducing the incoming damage. I know that would be just insanely great for the play style, because at that point you could actually take a hit, instead of having to always have things locked down 100% of the time.
I have a couple of like when I'm playing the game, I watch for it to feel a certain way, and I'm gonna kind of describe certain things I look for, and you can tell me if you've experienced this.
Okay.
Where I'm pushing a really high Greater Rift, and for example, one positive thing would be my health is low, monsters are attacking me, and I actually do something to use the environment to minimize how much damage I'm taking. Have you ever done that while pushing? Right.
Yep.
Or another one would be I see a health globe on the ground, but I'm already at full health, and I intentionally try not to pick it up because I know I'm going to take damage later, and I'll go and pick it up.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I love when the game feels that way, and so when we talk about removing like perma invulns or perma CC and stuff like that, it's because we're trying to like push damage and healing into an area where those kinds of moments happen more frequently when you are pushing your highest tier.
It makes sense because it brings back, and this is something that I always like to harp on, because the things I like and enjoy the most are kind of that high level play where my control of my character matters. And so one thing I actually was running into this weekend was as I was shifting pieces of gear around, I was gaining and losing health globe radius, pickup radius. And it actually started to benefit me to have less pickup radius because I was using Reaper wraps. And so I could mitigate my resource coming back in more efficiently by saying, okay, I'll leave that health globe over there and I'm not going to pick it up by accident by whirlwinding too close. Because then I can, I can basically make sure that my animation never stops. And that synergizes perfectly with that 4-piece Wrath of the Waste where I get my damage reduction when I'm in Whirlwind. So, being able to use mechanics in the game in terms of not only the affixes but also the health globe system, it just feels like a more skillful way of playing it, and that I think is always going to be better than that perma CC stuff that kind of feels cheesy if you want to label it that way. And so I would love to see more moments come back like that.
Yeah, I mean, like a couple of the things that you described there is just like the average day in the life of a hardcore player. Just so that way you're not going through and losing your characters. But that's something, especially the health globe one. Most of the Demon Hunter builds revolve around Reaper's wraps because we have to spend so much of our resource in. That's one of our main ways of regenerating it. So it's something that I always keep my eye on. Where are all the health globes? Not just for my own health, but I also I look at them and I see half my bubble of hatred. It's like that. So it's just like, okay, that is 2 cluster arrows, or that is 4 multi shots, sitting right there, and it affects the way that I play the game, because a lot of times it's like I'll kind of hone in on, well, which mob is the lowest, so that way I can put my last couple shots into it, kill it, spawn a health globe, so I can pick that up and then put another couple shots into the next one, just spawn another health globe and such. And so that's. I do really enjoy, kind of the health globes, hate globes.
Yeah. Philosophers calling hatred globes.
You know what? You're right that sometimes a lot of this happens in hardcore more than softcore. Do you guys? I don't remember. Do you guys always play hardcore?
There was a time when we did play softcore, back to vanilla days, right?
Long time ago.
But now it's hardcore all the way?
Hardcore all the way.
Hardcore all the way. Yeah, this is the church of only one death.
I like, how do you guys feel about sort of the way that the game has evolved lately with hardcore? Like, is it affecting the purity of hardcore that you keep your Paragon and your gear, or is it actually better for it?
It's such an interesting question. We were literally just talking about this last night.
Yeah, and this is a question that comes up, quite often. It was one that was, this goes back even to before, like at launch, people were discussing, or even before launch, people were discussing, is it really hardcore when you keep your stash?
Right.
Or true death passives even.
Yeah, or at the time, monks had the near-death experience, and people were calling, you're a cheater if you play a monk, type thing, just because you get another chance. But you've seen over time that obviously it really helps. It helps ease the pain of losing the character. There's people that will go through and they play in specific ways. I think it was Manor Cookie that it's like he only uses his best gear when he's pushing that highest rift. Any other point in time, he's using his backup set because he never wants to accidentally risk a DC and lose. The less time he spends playing with his best gear, the less of a chance that he has to lose it. And so there's a lot of things that go into that if you're always playing with your best gear on, you keep everything in your stash, you keep your Paragon levels, you keep your blacksmith, you keep all of your patterns and your gold, but it's that gear that you do lose still hurts so much.
And I think another big consideration too is patch 2.1.2 and the introduction of Ancients, because now you have it, and it's I think it's fair to say that hardcore became less hardcore when you got a shared stash, when you got shared Paragon, because the only thing that you were really losing was the gear, and if you had backups that you farmed up, you put them in the stash, and you were basically back to that same character. But because ancient gear now exists, it's another tier, and it's another, how many hours represented in farming. And so I think it put the hardcore aspect of play in a bit of a better place, in terms of just making it feel hardcore, because deaths hurt. They still do hurt. Like when you lose that ancient blade of prophecy.
You sound like that's a personal experience.
You know, hey, it's story time, right? We all have our stories. But man, it's tough when you're trying to.
How did you lose it?
We have two death stories. One was a DC, unfortunately. I was just doing Greater Rift 38 to level up gems for a Demon Hunter, so damn you, Demon Hunters, first of all. But the second one, we were actually, this was like a sweet moment. We were doing a group of 4 of us, and we hadn't played this composition before, so we're all kind of getting used to each other, warming up in some like early, Greater Rift 40, etc. And
I just want to stop you there and just warn everybody that we will have now on the show have talked about Flux's Demon Hunter for over 2 hours over the course of the past couple of episodes. I just want to point that out. But please continue.
What is dead may never die. And so we're going through, and now we're starting to get into some scarier territory. And I had just, no kidding you, just refarmed that ancient blade of prophecy that I lost in season 2 the night before. And I'm looking, because it's this is the weekend before the season's going to end. Easter's coming, and I'm like, all right, I'm so stoked. I have the whole weekend. I'm gonna get that solo progression and make one more attack at the leaderboards. And one of my friends is like, hey, we got to do our 4-player group. So we did that on Thursday. And I didn't get to see the weekend because we got to this crazy point. We're in the Halls of Agony area, and there's a fire grate on the floor. There are 2 elites on the other side of that fire grate. And then Flux, who Nineball just mentioned, his Demon Hunter was bringing up the rear, but he also happened to aggro another pack that none of us saw as we passed this one T intersection. And yeah, things got bad. Communication broke down, and both the DPS, so my Crusader, his DH, we both died, and the support characters got out of there, so lucky for them. Oh man.
Yep.
That's a story that it sucked to die, but it felt right because we died, risking our lives at that really high tier, trying to push the leaderboards, and the death mattered because I lost gear that I had sunk in a ton of time into getting, and I guess that's kind of the point I'm making with the Ancients, is that I could get my Akan set back up very quickly, but that's just normal Akans, and it's not Ancient, and to get that Ancient tier is really what's going to help to push a little bit higher on those leaderboards.
Totally. Yeah, I found that the Greater Rift, the kind of the intersection of like hardcore seasons and Greater Rift seems to work really well. Like I remember before Greater Rifts, if you were playing hardcore, you kind of played more conservatively, but then Greater Rifts all of a sudden give you this incentive to push your limits. And I think starting with Greater Rifts, people take more risks than they used to with their hardcore characters, because there's a very direct incentive to see if you can go like that one notch higher.
It's a great hook. It really is.
And because it's so much randomness too, like one of the things of hardcore, of course, is you want to be able to predict everything, so you never put yourself in a situation that you don't necessarily know all of the X and the Y and the Z factors to it. And so Greater Rifts are awesome because by the time you get in there, you got to kind of commit. You've used that key, you want to get that clear. And you get to these really interesting intersections where maybe the rift that you're going through, it's that perfect layout. It's that Zoltan cool, going through, and you can just vacuum up everything. You're feeling really good about it. And then you get that Rift Guardian. It's like, all right, here's Razel. I can't attack him because there's way too much lightning. And so I guess there's a bit of disparity there too between like Rift Guardians, if we can talk about that for a bit. Just some classes enjoy certain Rift Guardians, some of them dislike other ones, etc. It's different for each class, but I mean the difference also between like a Stone Singer or a Saxtress, because Saxtress makes ads, or
really just Stone Singer and everybody.
I mean there's that, of course.
You went peanuts
on Guardians, we're trying to pull them in, try to make it a little bit more reliable between them, while at the same time still trying to make the experience different. It's weird because I think that there's a desire sometimes to make everything 100% predictable. We get requests all the time of like, just remove all the pylons, or they're like, just make the rift deterministic, and so it's exactly the same every time. And I think a lot of people would say, just make it the same Rift Guardian every time. And I'll tell you, so we actually tried this, and it was terrible, and I'll tell you why. So really early on in the development of Greater Rifts, we removed a lot of the randomness. And the problem, and this isn't obvious, because it sounds like a great idea until you try it, is that you have this timer on your UI telling you whether or not you're beating the time. And you have your progress. And the UI makes it really clear whether you're ahead or behind the timer. And the problem is that the more and more randomness that you remove, the more you know exactly whether or not you're going to succeed. And if you can kind of imagine that we took all the randomness out and it was just a matter of execution, and you kind of think about, well, if I execute perfectly, maybe I'll finish this rift in 14 minutes and 20 seconds. But if I make a mistake, it's going to be 14 minutes and 30 seconds. Because let's face it, a big mistake is probably going to affect your time by no more than 5 or 10 seconds. When all the randomness is gone, you can tell 1 minute into the rift that you failed.
Right.
And that's terrible. You're like, oh, I'm 2 minutes behind. I won't be able to make that up. I guess I might as well abandon now.
Stop and start over.
It's almost like when speedrunners, I don't know if you're familiar with them, like someone's doing Super Mario 64 and they just don't get the right RNG on that first level.
Yeah.
So it's a reset.
Or I used to love watching Quake Done Quick and Quake Done Quicker, and it's like everything comes down to tenths of a second and perfect execution. And if you screw up early on, you're done. Your whole thing's over. And that's what happened to Greater Rifts. And we started to insert more and more randomness. And that's actually why pylons wound up where they were, and why I think that they're so critical. Is we said, okay, look, let's say that you think you're 20 seconds behind, as best as you can tell. What exactly am I going to do or hope for that will make up that 20 seconds? And there were some suggestions like, okay, well, can we make it something skill-based? Can there be something that the player does? And it's like, really? Like, if there's something you can do to make up 20 seconds, you'd already be doing it by now.
Yeah.
Right? So that it's kind of like that. I think that randomness is really important, so that even if you're a little bit behind in your head, you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I'll find 2 champion packs back to back, or maybe I'll hit a power pylon that's really well positioned. And at the end of the day, the Rift Guardian kind of plays into that. Now, it's not great when a Rift Guardian determines whether you're going to be there for 5 minutes versus 2. Right. So we are trying to pull that in, but some degree of randomness, I think, is actually integral to the design.
Okay, I can definitely understand that. It makes sense, and I kind of like, because for the longest time I was one of the very strong advocates of remove all the pylons. Like, it should be about skill. Like, what is this crazy system here where if I get lucky, I get lucky? But I think when you think about it that way, and you kind of bring in like the speed running aspect of it, if you make one execution error, you might as well reset, and it kind of invalidates the whole process. And then you go back to aggravating other parts of the game too, where it's like, well, it took me forever to get that Greater Rift 44 key. I had to do the damn trials all the time, and so now I hate the trial. It always comes back.
Always comes back.
You had to make it about the trial.
We'll leave it. But
it's part of the experience.
But no, I mean, that makes a lot of sense in terms of being able to give a reason and give clarity to why pylons, why Greater Rifts exist the way they do. Why RNG is in there. Because I know for the longest time we were thinking like, oh, it'd be so cool, like the original idea that you presented on the party at launch night, where it was you're going to be competing in the 2 towers, they're exactly the same, etc. And then of course it evolved into more of the showing off the different tile sets, etc., like you talked about in the story. So it makes, I think it's fine if we have it that way. I guess they're going to always be some of those players who they're on the cutting edge of Greater Rift 56, 57, whatever it may be, and they need a specific Guardian for their build. But I think that's probably always going to be the case in terms of if you're expecting certain circumstances to give you that God clear, you're going to have to get those circumstances. Like, there's no way around it.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned the race as well. And you're right. I forgot all about that. The 2 teams that get the exact same thing. And it's kind of the similar issue is if you end up 10 seconds behind the other team and your rifts are identical, you just get this like sinking feeling as the losing team that you're just like 99% of the time you're just falling behind, you know, a little bit at a time the whole way, and you're just wondering like what could we possibly do to beat them? And it's kind of like 15 minutes of just feeling like you're behind the whole time. Yeah,
that kind of comes in. This is one that I brought up a couple times on the show previously. Is the they had the like live raid races at BlizzCon. Where they have the teams and what was it? Last year's was just really bad because the one team kept wiping on the shamans.
Right.
And so it lost all interest after they wiped for like the second time after the other raid team had already cleared it.
That's a perfect example. Yeah, I think when we think about races, in our head we construct a narrative of like a photo finish and like people kind of like passing each other, you know, at 3 minutes one team's ahead and then the other team pulls ahead, and then in reality that just doesn't happen most of the time. You just have one team that's ahead and snowballs farther and farther ahead. Well, I shouldn't use the word snowball, but you know what I mean. Like they're just ahead and they stay ahead. Yeah. And that's how it actually plays out, unfortunately.
Yeah, this was something we were actually talking on last week's episode. I don't know if you had a chance to catch it or not, but we were talking about things like just from that aspect of having like competitive rifts, and you know, we were just kind of throwing around ideas of what if there was like an actual like event, you know, kind of like a boss. So you're not just going through and clearing mobs, but you actually had things that you had to do, that you had to make decisions as a team to either split up or stay together that might actually impact, you know, it's like I'm behind. So do we risk splitting the group up in order to complete the objectives faster, you know, in order to catch up, you know, or do we play it safe? You know, we're trying to come up with ideas that would make more interesting things than just watching them, you know, who can kill mobs fastest.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great line of thinking. I did listen to the show last week, and I think it is a matter of like just asking yourself like, what is it that I'm doing when I'm behind that I wasn't doing already to stay ahead? And I think that I think there's some options, but it is in general a pretty hard problem to solve. And I think what you end up with might be something pretty different. I mean, I think greater rifts have room for improvement on the tuning side, but in terms of their replayability, and here's the other thing, just kind of stepping back, is at the end of the day, you know, although there's a competitive aspect to greater rifts for those who want the competition, ultimately it's supposed to be a replayable system for everybody, you know? One of the things I lament right now is that the greater rift keys don't drop until Torment 1. And maybe this comes as a surprise to you guys, but probably not, and a surprise to some of your viewers, but you know, there are people who are playing on hard and master at level 70.
I'm shocked.
I know. The audience for Diablo is extremely large, and not everyone is in Torment, you know, one day into the season. But I sit there and I say, but Greater Rift 1 is really easy. Why don't we give them a key? I was like, well, there needs to be a reason to turn up the difficulty, and at Torment 6 it's 100% drop, so it kind of scales down. It's like, yeah, but I think people would really enjoy doing Greater Rifts even if they could only do, you know, Expert, because then they could probably do Greater Rift 4, Greater Rift 5, and they could get Legendary Gems, and that's actually how they get more powerful to eventually do Torment someday. And so, yeah, I really, like, I think first and foremost, Greater Rifts should be a feature for the masses. And I think that the fact that it's gotten a lot of high-end, you know, competitive attention was kind of inevitable. But a lot of our design decisions is really focused on how to make it replayable for everybody.
And I really like that aspect of actually having the chance of getting a key before you get into Torment, because just getting a couple legendary gems, that's more than enough in order to get you to Torment 1.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's one of those great things. Like that will probably be like if you're just running a Rift on a fresh level 70 and you see that key drop, that is the greatest trial key you've ever seen. Which by the time that this might implement, you won't have a trial key. We hope. But it's just that would be awesome going through and getting. Because if you get something like a Bane of the Powerful, or even like the Wildebeest Gizzard, that would be something you're instantly in Torment 1. You have enough survivability now.
Yeah, that's something I was going to point to, because even at level 1, like a Molten Wildebeest Gizzard is 10,000 life regen. And so when you think about just how incredible that is when you're looking at gear, you have like a level 63 rare on that gives you, I don't even know, like 1,000 life regen. It's a difference maker. And that actually kind of brings me to a thing that I meditate on too, is when you guys are looking, I don't know how much you look at the metrics of who's using what gem and what's popular. I remember there was a pie chart, I think at BlizzCon 2014, and you were talking about like the Invigorating Gemstone was one of the least used, and Bane of the Trap, Bane of the Powerful were super popular. So when you're looking to develop new gems, or just throwing different things into the game, because we're getting different stuff each season, are there considerations being made like, oh, we don't have as many defensive gems, so we want more of those? Like, oh, everyone's using this one, so let's introduce something to compete with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're kind of at the point where we look at the legendary gems, and different gems get used. Bane of the Trapped, like you said, super powerful. Bane of the Powerful, good baseline gem that always gets compared to, but I think we're definitely shifting towards gems with different function. With the Esoteric Alteration and Wildebeest Gizzard. I mean, it's pretty obvious that we say, hey, we need defensive gems. And then Boon of the Hoarder kind of came in, right, during 2.1.2. Was it 2.1.2? Yeah, I think that's right. And it had a different function. So I think that we're trying to get away. Like, I think we're kind of already happy with the idea. Look, if you just want to do damage, there's a handful of gems that do damage in different ways. Figure out the one that appeals to you the most or fits for your character. Let's try to find gems with, orthogonal properties to them. And actually, Nightfall, it's funny you were mentioning how you like this idea of a greater rift key. So I not power leveled, but I focused leveled really hard to get to level 70 as quickly as possible. On Friday night, Roger logs in on Saturday. He says, oh, I was busy, but I'm ready to play. And he says, can you power level me, Wyatt? And I'm like, oh, gosh. I don't know if you know that feeling when you first hit 70 and you have friends who aren't 70, or they're just logging in, and you're like, I could power level you, but I'm really kind of working on this other thing right now. And
you're just like staring at the open rift portal, and then they're whispering you, so you're just kind of like looking back, like, help me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like,
but he said, I'll tell you what, Wyatt, could you at least let me know when you're about to finish your next rift, so I can pick up a grift key from you? And I'm like, that I can do. So I helped him out with that. Actually, it's funny, that help me thing. I'm in a power leveling community. In the clans and communities section. And it's always funny at the beginning of every season, there's so many people who ask for a power level in the power leveling community, and the whole chat just like aggroes on them. They're like, level yourself! Rolling 70, no free ride, fastest way to level is to play the game! It's just, there's so much angst over it. But I mean, it's understandable, right? I mean, no one is 70. Who are you expecting is going to do this for you?
I just can't believe those requests that come in on it. And I will go ahead and put myself on the record. I hate power leveling. Everyone asks, I always say no, because you do it for one person, you have to do it for a million, you spend your entire time just power leveling, and I want to play the game. And I always think too, like, there's something to be said about getting that character up there yourself, because you take a little bit of pride in, hey, I did this, now I'm here. We started from the bottom, now we're here. Like, throw a Drake song in there. So, I just it irks me, but I get that it's a thing. But it's crazy. It's the second day of the season. Why? Why do you want to power level?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that we're also looking at. Like, we kind of ask ourselves, like, why do people ask for power levels? Why don't they just play the game? And I think, how can we make that 1 to 60 experience better? I mean, some people come in and they just say, why don't you just get rid of the 1 to 70 experience and just start a new season with everyone at 70? And then there's other people who come in and say, no, I like the leveling process.
Yeah.
You know? And I think kind of like the in-between answer is, from 1 to 60, I'm getting all these crafting materials and gems that are not good for me ever, right? They're just going to be vendor bait. And then do you guys ever have that experience? Did you get any legendaries that in like, you know that RNG does not work this way, but you're like, oh, I got a furnace. It's a low-level furnace. I'm so mad. You feel like you were robbed of a level 70 furnace in the future, which of course is irrational because RNG doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But there's just this sense that like every legendary you find, not only is it not going to be good for you at 70, it's actually emotionally painful to look at.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, even as we were doing our stream, Nineball, you'll recall like people were finding like star metal, like a level 36 star metal, and it's just
it was just like, oh. But the star metal, that's one for a ZDPS build, which is it's a star metal kukri. Who cares what level it is? You're not doing damage. But yeah, there's definitely, we saw quite a few while we were leveling that night of people going and getting low level furnaces, low level rings of royal grandeur, things like that, and just every time it was just like, oh, congratulations and I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, I think sometimes we're also looking at like, would people power level less if you didn't feel like everything from 1 to 69 was an automatic throwaway? Just kind of throw that question out there. I don't know. It's complex. We don't have to dwell on it. I just power leveling is a thing, but it doesn't necessarily make the game better. But at the same time, it's not the strongest part of the season. So.
Yeah, I know. I at least know from like the hardcore perspective that it's something that we all have to do multiple times. But I know the Gym of Ease has made that a lot less painful.
Yes.
Going through, and I have to say that I'm the type of person I enjoy the leveling experience the first time, like at the beginning of the new season, because I'm all hyped up for it. But as soon as I go to try and level that second character, it's a pain. I hate it. Yeah, it's just like I could be gaining more Paragon levels, or I could be running Rifts or something. I guess it comes down to like what you said, is just like I could be doing other things that increase my power level, whereas what I'm doing right now will not.
Right. Unless of course you're hardcore. Well, you're always playing a hardcore, and it's kind of this like thing that you have to do. It's one of the things that adds to the drama of a hardcore, is knowing that if you die, you're gonna have
this is my penance, more or less.
Yeah, pretty much.
Think about
I had the worst hardcore death in season 1. I was so mad. So I lost my barbarian, and it was because I was pushing Greater Rifts too hard. And then I was like, oh, okay, fine. Well, fortunately, I have a reduced level requirement. At this time, the Gem of Ease wasn't in the game, but I had a two-hander I had set aside that was level 42 required. I was so happy because I knew it was going to be, awesome for my new barbarian. So I start leveling up my barbarian. Of course, the first thing you do is you combine all your rubies and you shove the ruby in your helm so that you can level that faster.
Of course.
And then I grabbed my two-hander, and then I made a mistake, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I lost my second barbarian. And now I didn't have my 42 two-hander, but the other thing is I had no rubies left because I was a barbarian, and they were all like, most of my rubies was on my first barbarian, and then the rest of my rubies was on my second barbarian. I was like, oh, I'm such an idiot.
The question I have to ask, for Brandy, since she's not here, was Don Vu, was he involved in any way?
Oh, in my death?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, he's not. In fact, he graciously offered to power level up my third barbarian that season after he saw the torture and pain that I had gone through on those first two.
What a guy.
And it comes full circle on the power leveling.
What a guy. What a guy.
Well, I hate to be the moderator, but I do want to keep us at least cognizant of the time. We have about 15 minutes left or so.
Yep. I think we didn't really have that much feedback, and we only really have one item.
You guys have user feedback and user submitted items, right?
Yeah,
we usually
We usually do, but I think because we're kind of in that weird place where everyone just started over, people feel like they don't have things to show. So we only got
we only got a single item this week, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, or well, Mr. Dorcas did send in the one email because we hadn't seen the Wirt's original leg, so he sent in all of the special blue weapons.
Oh, I can throw that up on the screen too here. We do have that.
There is one thing that we had talked about in the going back and forth, before the show, that I did want to bring up because I want to know the answer to this question.
Oh boy!
And it's about the invokers.
Oh, invokers.
So we're at that time, it's like, we do still want to have time for feedback, but I want to know the answer to those questions.
So invokers is it's going to be a Thorn set, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you know that we basically have been trying to err away from totally passive play styles.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess the question we've been asking ourselves is, what is the fantasy of being a Thorns player? And I think back to D2,
it's a little adjustment.
I think back to D2, and you'd have like your Golem, and you'd probably be casting like amplified damage, and you're playing a Necro, and you have Thorns. I mean, that's one common way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the amplified damage kind of like kept things to be somewhat active, but at the same time, I think a big part of it was that part of the fantasy is that I can stand there and not do everything, and the monsters just kill themselves attacking me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like a power fantasy at that point, where you're just like, I am so amazing that monsters die in my presence. And so
I have everything, you have nothing, go my minions.
Right.
Yeah.
And the problem, and so one of the things that we've been talking about as we re-examine invokers is that the fantasy that we want. And it's like, okay, if that's the fantasy we're going to fulfill, realistically, this set is not allowed to be a top tier set. Because there's no way that we would have a top tier, highly competitive at the highest Greater Rift set that involved a completely passive gameplay style. So we're like, okay, well, if this is the fantasy that we're meaning, is that the right way to go? Should we design it so that it's viable for, like, say, Torment 6 farming, but not viable for the best? And that's counter to a lot of our other philosophies lately, where when we revisit a set, we try to make sure it is something that can reach the highest levels. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like step one is what is the player fantasy, and is it monsters? Is it me doing nothing?
Yeah.
And then another option is to say, well, no, that's not really the fantasy. The fantasy is just me being durable, me doing something active, and the monsters killing themselves against me. And it's like, okay, well, invokers can be used by everybody. So if it's going to be me doing something active, it can't be something that's class specific. So we're like, okay, well, what active, non-class specific action can we do? And of course, we start looking at, okay, well, obviously it'll be spenders and generators and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, well, we're doing stuff like that on others. Is that appropriate here? And so we were looking at stuff like that. And then the final one, struggle, as we were kind of looking at invokers, is, and I don't know if you guys have seen this or ever tried to make a Thorn set work, but there's a lot of monsters who actually don't attack you that aggressively.
Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing more annoying, especially at a current power level. Like, let's say that your Thorns is all of your damage. I mean, it's like 98% of your damage is coming from your Thorns.
Mm-hmm.
And if a monster just refuses to attack you, and you're hitting it with, poison dart or something, or shield bash or whatever, and you're doing like almost none of your potential damage, waiting for that monster to attack you, it's actually really annoying.
Oh yeah.
So we're like, okay, well, it looks like we're going to have to integrate a taunt effect or something into it, and ideally it'd be like D2, where you're getting a pet to be taunted. But again, this is a non-class specific set, so. Anyway, those are kind of like the general thoughts on invokers. So I guess the question I would have for you guys is, I kind of hint a lot that our ultimate direction depends a lot on what the fantasy is of invokers. Is it that I stand there and do nothing, or is it that I'm still very active but I'm reflecting, or is it something else entirely?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And well, see, the the hard part for me is that it is like that passive play, and I feel I never feel more bored than when I'm not actively engaging in the combat, and that even goes towards when you're just being carried by someone else. For instance, you know, you're kind of back there collecting all the loot as they kill the things. But to bring it back to invokers, the things that I've thought about it previously were, okay, maybe you can work it into like make it a blocking kind of set, and maybe there's a fantasy with that, and of course it drops for Crusaders, so I'm like, okay, well maybe Crusaders really can have this Thorns thing going for it. But I guess when we talk about the fantasy, like what I would love to see is it kind of synergize with being able to do some damage, so it's not all of your damage, you know, like you still can contribute. I guess I just don't know how you get it to translate so that Thorns is still like the main focus of that set, but you're also levying some of your skills and perhaps like in the environment or whatever have you to also get it done. I don't know, Nineball, have you thought about this more?
Well, for that one, for me, it's like I always kind of picture it as, you know, like the waves crashing up against the rocks. You have monsters, you know, like throwing themselves at you and just impaling themselves on your armor, you know, while you just kind of like wade through it and just kind of like just slashing them by, kind of like, you know, like you're an unstoppable kind of juggernaut type thing. I really liked how it works with the hack, the one-handed weapon, you know, so that way all of your Thorns damage gets converted into actual damage, you know, whenever you do an attack, so it gives you some kind of like bonus and active aspect of it there. But yeah, I guess for me the fantasy is, you know, just kind of the enemies throwing themselves at you but not being able to do anything, so kind of like a uber like defensive set, but as you were pointing out, it doesn't work that well when the enemy doesn't attack you, or, you know, something like what is it, the choker, who doesn't like physically attack you at all, and instead of you just, you know, popping up poison pools and things like that, nothing that would even trigger Thorns on him would make it kind of difficult without actually having something to do to
right, and when
put the damage over.
So when you say something like that, like what I almost think about is when we were getting really excited about the Wormwood getting reworked, and, you know, kind of just you're running through, speeding along, and you're passively doing damage to stuff, but it's an aura, right? And so maybe you turn invokers into something that maybe it is only going to be T6 viable or so, but it's kind of the set that you can use generally to just kind of speed through the rift, and you're killing stuff without necessarily hitting stuff, but because you have this aura, and maybe as you know, one of the bonuses could make the aura bigger, or like you add a supplemental item that the further away you are from an enemy, the more damage it takes or something. I don't know, but
or you could kind of do it like a focus and restraint type thing, where you have ability A triggers when you use a generator, and ability tree triggers when you use a generator. You know, so that way you could go through and have something that every time that you use a generator, you gain an aura that does your Thorns damage, or a percentage of your Thorns damage, to everything within 20 yards of you. And then whenever you use a spender, you know, you would kind of like explode for a mini burst of Thorns damage. And then, you know, or maybe you send like a projectile forward that does your Thorns damage at whatever it is that you're attacking with a spender.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that's cool. I mean, I think that mechanic could work. I think we would, you know, I think that's probably a good starting point. I think that would not get the fantasy of the monsters crashing up against you, because now all of a sudden you're playing a much more active role in getting your Thorns damage to apply.
Yeah.
But maybe we kind of split the difference and like do something like that while still having, like, I mean, let's say that was a 2-piece and a 4-piece bonus that you just described, and then the 6-piece bonus is focused on the whole monsters crashing up against you, right?
But you could make it as kind of like a tanking thing, that the 6-piece set bonus just makes it so that way you have a passive taunting aura that forces enemies to come and run and hit you.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually pretty
cool.
And
I think that a lot of the Thorns fantasy that I didn't even mention earlier, but I totally agree with what you were saying, Nineball, is that I'm also focused on being super survivable. That's kind of this inherent assumption, I think, that people have about a Thorns build. And that's something that right now people build as tanky as they need to be to survive the greater rift that they're trying to beat, but no one really goes overboard on survivability. And you almost kind of want the Thorns to go, no, seriously, these monsters attack me and they cannot hurt me, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
Oh, so I wasted all of our time on that one. So
nicely done.
Yep. But we've got some items and probably take at least a question or two, definitely.
Sure, yeah. Let's see what we have here very quickly in the bag. One thing that we did get in terms of feedback was it came from Mad Hamster. And this is an interesting one because it was something you guys touched on in the Tavern Talk, was kind of the organization of legendary gems. You know, you leave a season, you've got a ton of legendary gems that you've leveled up, and then perhaps this is your second season, so you already have ones from the first season. You don't know which is which level, and, you know, so I actually ran into a mistake in season 1 where I equipped a level 1 Bane of the Trapped when I meant my level 38 Bane of the Trapped to be on. Subsequently led to my death, and then Archon was like, well, at least you didn't lose your 38 Bane of the Trapped, right?
At least you look on the bright side.
Oh yeah. So you know, there could be those issues where it's just a little bit tougher to manage it. So you wanted to kind of get more info on perhaps, you know, that the heirloom system that you guys talked about from WoW, and how it could better organize the legendary gems.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the big request that we get, and, you know, we get this on the team as well, is can we make the legendary gems account wide? You know, and obviously not like full account, but like within hardcore, non-hardcore, season, non-season.
Yep.
And you know, that is something that we're working through some of the details. I mean, I think it's something that we'd like to do. We have a few other things that we're kind of prioritizing a little bit higher. I mean, I think this is kind of the ugly reality of game development, is that we can't do everything, even things that we think are a good idea.
Yep.
Because, I mean, as you can probably tell just from this conversation alone, like, Greater Rift Trials, that's a thing, right?
Yep.
Like, working on Rift Guardians, that's a thing. Figuring out how to make the level up experience. I mean, these are just things that we've talked about. Working on Invokers, right? These are just, within this podcast, we've covered these things. and legendary gems, yes, that's a thing. And not to mention, you know, Greater Rift end screen needs to have more information on it, and close with the space bar. Yes, totally agree. This is a thing. These are all things that we want to do.
That is one thing that needs to be changed soon.
Yes. So I mean, imagine that you're kind of, you know, staring down a you know, 1,000 ideas, and they're all amazing, and they're all things that you want to do, and in the next patch you get to do 6 of them. How do you pick? And that's really kind of, it's just, I mean, it's a great place to be, and it's also a very difficult place to be. And you know what? The problem's not even unique to game development. I mean, this is something that anyone who does software development is familiar with. Is just the never-ending task list of things that you'd like to do and prioritizing them properly. And you know that, you know, hiring people is not going to solve the problem, because for those who are familiar with software development, you know, as you add people to the team, you know, organizational logistics increases as well, and overhead, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you get things done faster, right?
Yeah, that was a huge issue with the WoW team when they you know, had so many people come on. They had to spend a significant amount of time training them and getting them into the mindset to, you know, coincide with the team and push back warlords a little bit longer than they wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you right now, like, I would love for legendary gems to be account wide. I think that'd be perfect. That'd be fine. I think that we would have to look at the UI for socketing a gem. I kind of lean towards still making them gems, except all the gems of the same type. Like, you can have duplicates, but they all share a rank. And then at the end of a season, we don't even mail you the gems. We just merge whichever one is higher. And then you just, you know, you log in and like, oh, look, you had a 32 Bane of the Trapped in non-season and a 45 Bane of the Trapped in season. And at the end of the season, that 45 just overwrites all instances of Bane of the Trapped in non-season. That'd be cool. Yeah.
That alone would probably save an hour's worth of work at the end of every season.
I have no idea when we'll be able to do something like that. I would love it. But, I mean, the reality is, like I said, all of these awesome ideas come down to prioritization. And as I think I'm looking at your chat, they're kind of like, okay, don't worry about the gems. Just do trials. Go back to trials. On gems. And you know what? I agree. So that's kind of where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think we're pretty much like at the end here. I did want to go ahead and show off because we did get one item of the week, so we would be sad not to show it. And also, this is a moment to encourage, as you guys start to farm up in Season 3, as we get deeper into this lovely thing here, please feel free to submit feedback to us. It's Westmarch Workshop at BlizzPro.com. And you can also send us a tweet, which is actually where this NGM comes from. That's on your screen right now. We got a tweet from...
Wow.
At Giror45, an ancient NGM. And that was an item, that we were actually just talking about at the beginning of this podcast. So
yeah. And you got 9 instead of 8. I mean, I know it goes up to 10, but 9's kind of like really makes it easier to keep that dashing strike up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, for those of you guys who are listening, the legendary power on this new item is that your skill cooldowns are reduced by 9 seconds 9 seconds after killing an elite pack. Reduced by 9 seconds for 15 seconds after killing an elite pack. Sorry about that. So that's pretty powerful. And yeah, the dashing strike monks are enjoying this item quite a bit right now.
Yeah, I remember you guys remember we actually took a lot of heat when we changed NGM during PTR. It used to be that it just reduced all your cooldowns by a flat amount, and we were like, you know what, this item, it's going to be really good for certain overgeared farming builds. Like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and it makes me so happy to see people doing it for exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the
overlay issues.
The Skype tweaked on us. I'm sorry about that.
We were expecting it.
Well, it happens at some point.
Yep.
But yeah, so again, at this point, we're wrapping things up. What are you guys looking forward to going forward here in Season 3?
Well, I am looking forward to finalizing and grooming my full Natalia set. I can not wait to be right there next to you, spinning to winning.
Till we die.
Till we die, and then we start over and do it again.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And Wyatt, how about yourself?
I am looking forward to getting my barb up some more. I mentioned kind of that 6 legendary gems to 40, which hopefully I'll finish pretty soon. Congrats on you finishing it. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And I'm trying to hang on the top 1,000 wizard solo right now. It's hard because I have a lot of gotta work. I wish I could just play all day, but eventually I'm probably gonna start falling behind, and I gotta and actually honestly spend a lot of time playing the internal build for all the stuff that's coming up, which means I won't be able to play live. So, but I'm gonna hang on as long as I can, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how long I can stay on the top 1,000.
Awesome. I wish you the best of luck at that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I myself will be doing similar things, hopefully getting that cursed chest conquest. We've been scheming and plotting on it. So many attempts, so close.
Yep, we are actually going to be doing that after the show.
That's right. So wish us luck.
Hey, there's a bunch of people in chat. I just want to address this, talking about the Mordex bracers.
Okay.
I did an interview with Ziggy D last week, and I think some people didn't know that, I guess at the end of the day, I just want to acknowledge that we didn't handle that well. And I think, we've been pretty public and honest about saying that we didn't handle that well. It should have been communicated better. It should have been changed in the patch notes correctly. We had decided to cut Mordex bracers from the patch a week before the patch went live. And there was a few communication errors internally. There was also difficulties getting that change to console on time. And unfortunately, we didn't handle that very well. I do believe in the removal. I think that if you look at the leaderboards and kind of imagine what would the community be talking about, what would we be talking about today if the barbarians were way, way, way ahead of everybody else if Mordex bracers were live. So I think it was the right decision. I think a lot of people agree in the community that it was the right decision, but clearly we goofed on the communication of that. So, you know, sorry to those barbarians that were affected by that.
It's at the end of the day, I think it works out okay because you see barbarians work on fury, so this is going through and helping them.
That's
because
right.
the amount of fury that's being generated by the barbarians will keep them spinning for years to come.
Yeah,
and
who doesn't generate much fury?
Yep, and then all of the hatred is being directed at demon hunters, as it should have been, and is then going through and continuing them to also spin to win through the new Natalia set for the next couple of years. So it worked out for everybody.
Nineball, what am I gonna do with you?
You are milking that.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I think with that,
I do what I can.
I think with that we can close out the show. Wyatt, I want to go ahead and thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's been super enjoyable.
Oh, thank you for having me. I listen to you guys on YouTube while I'm playing. I kind of go home, I play, I put you guys on, and I listen, and I feel like you're, you know, hanging out with me while I play Diablo.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, if you ever plan on starting up a hardcore character, look us up.
Will do.
Amen. All right, guys, thank you. You've been listening to episode 46 of Westmarch Workshop, Storytime with Wyatt Cheng. You can find us here every Wednesday. That's going to be twitch.tv/Leviathan111 for the live show. It starts at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can also catch it on YouTube if you don't make the live show, and that's going to be over at SA Stewart 1 or BlizzPro, and then of course iTunes and Stitcher for our audio-only version. Feel free again to send us feedback. That's going to be westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. You can also tweet at us. We do love tweets, and that's the WM Workshop. And of course, if you want to follow each of us individually, Nineball Gamer is on Twitter. I'm SA Stewart 111, and Wyatt, you're also on Twitter as well too, right?
I am. I tweet a little bit at CandleSun, but you know, that's sort of like a personal account, and sometimes I'm just like dorking about non-Diablo stuff. So it's not like other Blizzard accounts where there's like official information. I don't post official stuff as much as possible from there. It's just personal.
That's heresy.
Fair enough. And otherwise, guys, we wish you the best of RNG as this season 3 kicks off, and we will be seeing you soon.
See you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.